Ahead and call Littleton Elementary School Board meeting to at this particular time for April 13th. Meeting data, what do you think? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nielsen,
Here.
Mrs. Contreras,
Here.
Mr. Ricketts,
Present.
Mrs. Soshanek,
Present.
Mrs. Reyes.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'd like to take a minute now and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to call for a moment of silence and just with some thoughts to all of those who have put their efforts and skills and everything together to make sure that we're safe and able to return to school and take care of all those things that are needful for the youth and young people that we take care of. Thank you. Are there any members of the board that would like to make a statement this evening?
Mr. President.
John, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. I just wanted to announce that I had the privilege of attending the Littleton Education Foundation Trivia Night last week, I believe. It was a wonderful time. I will say that my team got their butt kicked pretty thoroughly at trivia. I say we've got some pretty smart supporters and teachers in our district, but just wanted to thank everybody who participated in that event, as well as the outstanding work of the foundation and all they do to support our teachers and students.
I'd just like to take a minute and recognize a student from the Littleton Elementary, Alexander Rickett. He was recognized by the city of Avondale along with 7 other students for the exceptional student of the month for March. City of Avondale encouraged any of those within the school district there to submit their names of those exceptional students to the city, and they will then be recognized at the city council meeting. And the other thing I had, John, they might not have been as smart in this trivia as you had encountered, but I attended ASBA new member training, part 2. I listened a lot, and they were pretty smart. We covered teamwork, communication, conflict of interest, and board policies, among just some of the few things there. So if there's nothing else, Dr. Freeman, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have a few remarks this evening, and since we've been making this transition, a few things going on. Let me welcome everybody. Buenas tardes a todos, and good evening. We're excited to be back in person, and our board members, the entire executive administration. It was a year ago this month we held our first ever all virtual board meeting, and this is our first hybrid board meeting with limited in-person attendance and most of our audience still joining us from YouTube from the safety of their homes. We appreciate everybody's time and dedication to the district. Teachers and staff have done a great job transitioning back to in-person instruction throughout the hybrid model at our school sites. Communication to families, implementation of new procedures, community building in each classroom has made for a smooth transition back to our campuses. We'll discuss metrics and mitigation later in the meeting, but for now, I'd like to thank the community for their support, keeping everybody safe. Please continue to follow recommendations from health authorities and keep your students home if they show signs of illness. In current conditions, the adage of taking a village to raise a child is so true, and we need to help each other to help our schools be able to stay open for in-person learning. As Member Rader said, the Littleton Education Foundation hosted their annual fundraising event at the end of last month. It was called the Battle of the Brains, and it was a trivia night. It's our first hybrid fundraising experience, with most game contestants joining in virtually with some limited in-person attendance. We've become so used to virtual communication. Everybody had fun. The event was a great success. The foundation raised about $23,000, which is close to their annual fundraising goal. Proceeds from the foundation go towards extracurricular opportunities and toward recognizing and supporting our teachers. We'd like to extend a special thanks to the foundation board members and sponsors, including One GPA, ADM Group, Canyon State Bus, Chase Building Team, EPS, Midstate Energy, Progressive Roofing, Pueblo Mechanical, Right Hand Construction, Skyline Builders and Restoration, Stone Cold Masonry, who I think was the winner. And we still haven't figured out how they pulled that off. And then Valley Schools Trust. They're always helping out with things in the district. And a special thanks goes to Susan Candelaria. She's one of our student achievement coaches, for her assistance in coordinating communication with the staff, and to Member Rader for his in-person attendance. Even humble as he may be, he did a great job as his team captain. And the foundation sponsors and other guests appreciated the opportunity of seeing everybody at the venue. So that was nice. Students in our schools have been involved in what we call student agency activities. These are opportunities for each student to set, monitor, reflect on, and celebrate daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly goals. If students know their goals and they trust their teachers to support them as they move through the chosen path, students are more invested in their own growth. Their progress was discussed last month at parent-teacher conferences. 82% of parents participated, and we know what a challenge it's been for people to stay engaged during the pandemic. So thank you all for all you do in our community, and your continued work to engage in the process of growth and improvement for each learner. Schools are also engaging in Kids at Hope destination events where families can come together to time travel with their children. The Collier Business Academy students were asked to show how financial literacy, lifelong skills such as money management and entrepreneurial thinking will relate to their future goals. Country Place Leadership Academy is showing their leadership to community partners and community leaders, including virtual tours, speeches, leadership lessons, and performances. Fine Arts Academy students engaged in time travel to the year 2045 and 2046. So I guess it was a school year. That's 25 years from now. So students explored the unique details of their surroundings. They noted the many ways in which they positively contribute to the well-being of their community. And they created and presented photo collages and slides to share about their future lives as well as their plans for getting there. Littleton STEM students reviewed who their ACEs were with a focus on the Ace of Hearts, and created cards to share with them. Parents joined for Culture Night, where they learned about others in connections with home and family. Quentin STEM Academy is gearing up to have students share their hobbies and talents in an upcoming virtual talent show. And Trace Rios Service Learning Academy students shared what they're believing looks like and feels like. As a class, they generated a list, and the class used that for self-reflection. We're pleased to report Southwest Food Service Excellence applied for and was awarded the No Kid Hungry School Nutrition Grant. SFE will apply the $10,000 award to purchase insulated bags, which can be very expensive in kitchen equipment as far as that goes, and the utility carts and salad bars for next year. This will enable SFE to provide larger varieties of fruits and vegetables to our students to promote healthier lifestyles. Ms. Rubio and the SFB team are very excited for this extra support to continue providing healthy food options to students and families in the Littleton School District. This has been a year filled with amazing stories of teachers and families overcoming challenges, and as they work to support our students and our schools and our whole community. Each year, we recognize outstanding teachers as Westside Impact Teachers of the Year. The ceremony had to be canceled last year due to the pandemic, but this year's award ceremony will be held May 4th in the morning. We still won't be able to gather in person, but we've partnered with Grand Canyon University's K-12 Education Development Team to make this a special event. Information for registration's been shared out, but I want to mention to everyone as a reminder, registration is needed to receive the link to allow you to join in the virtual event. Our human resources team is pleased to report that 92% of all contracts offered this spring were returned signed. 87% of those were returned in 5 days or less. Teacher retention is a point of pride for the district and the leadership, including that of our governing board, which are to be commended as a team for recognizing the importance of retaining experienced staff. Our board continues to demonstrate commitment to balancing instructional priorities with security needs to let the community know how much everyone in our district is valued. Littleton is a highly regarded place to work and to learn because of the coordinated leadership effort. In closing, I'd like to express appreciation to Twyla Markram with United Way for their donation of school supplies. And that's all I have, Mr. President, this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. We always appreciate that update. Ms. Vandewater, our program showcase for tonight. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman. I'm excited to present to you our program showcase for this evening. Tonight, Trace Rios Service Learning Academy will showcase their Project Citizen. Project Citizen provides a practical, first-hand approach to learning about our complex system of government and how to monitor and influence it. Through engaging in the process, students work together to research their community to discover problems and then identify solutions in the form of policy that require government involvement. Students also have the opportunity to display their research and policy suggestions through showcases, a way for students to display their research and present their policy solutions to their classroom and their community. Principal of Trace Rios Service Learning Academy, Mr. Steve Rickert, will present this evening an overview of Project Citizen, and he will share a video with the two teachers and their students who have participated in this process. Welcome, Mr. Rickert.
Thank you, Ms. Vandewater, and good evening, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman and E-Team. It is my great honor to showcase the Project Citizen Club at Trace Rios Service Academy. Last year, we as a school undertook the process of articulating a mission that would guide and govern the work we do at Trace Rios. What resulted was a mission statement that included expectations such as developing worldly thinkers with a passion to use their skills and intelligences to positively impact their communities, and empowering students to solve authentic, real-world problems and become career-ready for fields in public service. With this mission in mind, and service learning as the focal point, two of our teachers, Mr. David Isham and Mr. Nicholas Ferrando, brought the Project Citizen Club to our campus. This civics-centered program has given our middle school students the opportunity to monitor and influence policy for the betterment of their community, interact with public service professionals, and develop real-world skills that will foster a sense of competence and efficacy. In short, this program's veritable alignment with our focus and mission at Trace Rios has given our students an opportunity to bring our focus into reality as they lead, advocate, and serve. I invite you to enjoy our video as Mr. Isham, Mr. Ferrando, and members of our Project Citizen Club share with you the impact their involvement has had on them individually and on our campus as a whole.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr. Freeman. My name is David Isham. I am one of the mentor teachers for Project Citizen over at Trace Rios Elementary School. I just wanted to give you a little introduction to Project Citizen, what it is. Project Citizen is a portfolio-based civic education program for grades 5th through 12th grade. Trace Rios, we do it from 6th grade through 8th grade. It helps teachers and students understand public policy and use this information to create change in their community, thereby empowering them and their teachers. Project Citizen is an international civics education program. In Arizona, Project Citizen operation is supported by lawforkids.org and the Arizona Foundation for Legal Services in Education. Project Citizen is interdisciplinary, is based on cooperative learning, is an excellent model for performance assessment, is an excellent method for implementing project-based learning. It focuses on state and local government, applies student learning to real public policy issues that allows for the development of participatory skills. It's also aligned to Arizona state standards. The end result of Project Citizen teams are the e-portfolio. E-portfolios are reviewed by a panel of judges, and the top 3 e-portfolios for each region will compete in a state competition. The state competition has a specific format that has students presenting their policy and then answering questions from a panel of 5 judges. The judges are normally collegiate professors, members of the Department of Education, former mayors or city council members, lawyers, and court justices. The student's portfolio includes the following 4 tasks: identifying the problem, researching alternative policies, presenting their distinct policy, and then developing an action plan. The Tres Rios Service Learning Academy Project Citizen team consists of 11 members that are from the 7th and 8th grade student population. These students have gone above and beyond by completing over 30+ hours of Project Citizen class time in Google Classrooms since December 2020. I am very proud of this Project Citizen team.
Project Citizen has been a great experience. It has taught me many things, such as how to find ways to help our community and make it better. What we did is we found ways to try to make it easier for our schools in ways like helping our staff. So what we would do is as students, we would stay after school. So we would help the staff with whatever they need. An example would be like helping the librarian or helping the custodian. The way it has impacted my life, it has made me realize that I should help out more community and our school. And another reason it has impacted my life is that this club, we can pass it to other students. That way we can always make the community better.
Hi, I'm Ian. And today I'll be talking about how I would describe Project Citizen as experience through this quarter. Project Citizen to me was fun. I got to meet new people. It taught me how to work with a lot of people at a time. I love Project Citizen. It has my favorite teachers in it, and they're really fun, and they make everything really exciting.
What Project Citizen has been this year for me, it's been really fun so far, and I like socializing and working with people on other projects. I learned how it feels like to have power, and with great power comes great responsibilities. I've worked with my fellow classmates on this big project on how Tres Rios is going to look like in the future. It affected my life because it made me realize I can do anything as long as I have friends nearby.
Hi, my name is Jamie. My grade level, I'm in 8th grade. And what I learned from Project Citizen is how to be responsible, how to communicate with others, how to have better socializing skills, and how to have more confidence. What I did in Project Citizen is be in Project 2 and help my partners make slides and edit them, and talk about what we should add or put in the slides to make them better. It has impacted my life by showing me more skills like socializing, how to perform in front of people, and how to have time managing skills, also how to be a leader.
My name is Adriana. I'm in 8th grade. And Project Citizen has been an amazing opportunity for me to engage with my team to better the environment around us. At first, I did not think I was going to enjoy this club because I thought it was all about history, but once I joined it, I noticed how life-changing it really was. This program has made me think about the things that we can change just as a small group. I've looked forward to coming every time because I love the environment that we have built. I felt very passionate about our policy, and I'm glad that we can make a difference for the students in our school.
This year was my first year being able to be a part of the amazing group of Project Citizen. It has been a lot of interacting and finding new ways of doing things that we would be doing but online, being creative to make it all work well. I've learned lots of new things about how to form policy and the process of making it a reality and making a change in our school and the education system. I have learned that students are missing some parts of life skills in the education system, and we're hoping to make a change with our policy. We are hoping to make a positive impact on the lives of other students in the district Our entire group of Project Citizen have worked very hard to push and form this policy. It has impacted my life because it has taken me out of my comfort zone to be able to work efficiently, and it has taught me that if you think you can change things for the better, you have the power to make it happen.
My name is Kylie. I am in 7th grade. The Project Citizen experience for me was really nice. I was able to learn better speaking skills and to have more courage when speaking. I've learned more social skills and am more confident when talking to others and speaking out loud to others. I've also been able to learn a lot about what people have been doing to help out with the community. This has impacted my life in a great way. The things I've learned here I'll most likely, or definitely, remember for a long time and will help me with the things that will happen in the near future.
I'm in 8th grade, right? And what I've done this year is help a lot of other students with their stuff. And how it affected me this year, how it affected me, I just know that it's going to help a lot of other kids in the future.
There will always be something that these kids can get involved in. So it's a larger project than just themselves. So if it grows with the intention that they have, then we'll always have kids doing something like this.
After being online all day for school, these students contributed their free time to form this policy and provide an amazing service learning opportunity at our school. Project Citizen has given students who normally would participate in extracurricular activities a chance to not only better themselves as students, but also the school. But Project Citizen doesn't need to stop here. This can become a vital part of service learning at our school. Students will not only be able to help our school, but also the community if they choose.
Our Project Citizen Club has submitted their portfolio for consideration in the statewide Project Citizen competition, as well as the Beyond the Classroom Service Learning and Economics competition sponsored by the Arizona Council of Economic Education. We are eagerly awaiting the results, which we should receive in the next few weeks. And while faring well in these competitions is the goal, we are already filled with pride over the work of our Pumas, and we are confident that the skills developed during their time in Project Citizen have them well prepared to continue to pursue their passions to serve. Thank you for your time this evening, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Any member of the board have any questions or comments they'd like to address to Mr. Rickert?
I don't have any questions, but just want to congratulate your teachers and your students on that. That's awesome. It's an amazing program that you have, and I'm excited to see it grow. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I'd just like to add my thanks to the presentation. I didn't have an idea what it was about, but there's days I wish I would have known a lot like that when I was younger. You have to wait till older, you don't remember it all, but if you can get it in when you're young. What are you laughing at? But thank you so much. That's amazing. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more work and study on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rickert.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Vanderwater. We'll have a call to the public. There's no one that have put any comments in today. Appreciate that. Item number 9 then is consent agenda. Would any of the members of the board like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda?
No.
If not, can we have a motion?
This is Amy, and I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Amy.
This is Kathy. I'll second that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader, Mrs. Soshanek,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. French, you have some information for us tonight on bond debt financing.
I do. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Mr. President, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman and Littleton community, This evening, we'll be looking at how existing bond authorization and potential new authorization may impact the district. A team of consultants from Stiefel, Mark Reeder and Jack Leeper will be presenting information on the district's bond authorization, upcoming bond issuance, and potential for additional bond authority. Should that be referred by the board and approved by the voters. They will be reviewing outstanding bonds as well as information on current rates and market conditions. After the Stiefel presentation, we will have a menu of items put together by staff for the potential new authorization. I'd like to turn it over now to Mark Reeder and Jack Leeper.
Thank you, Mr. French, Mr. President, members of the board. This is Mark Reeder. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And can everybody see our PowerPoint presentation?
Looks good, Mark.
Very good. Yes. Thank you very much. We wish we were there in person, and I'm zooming in from home, but it's very nice to be with you this evening. As Mr. French mentioned, we're going to go through some information here momentarily relative to a potential forthcoming of new issue of bonds from your 2017 bond election. And as Mr. French mentioned, I'm going to walk you through some scenarios relative to the board's consideration of calling for a possible bond election. A lot of this information, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, is probably a repeat to you. I'm going to go fairly quickly, but at the same time, make sure I address all of your questions. I wanted to start off the presentation by giving you a quick overview of the outstanding general obligation bonds of your district. As you know, general obligation bonds require voter approval. They are bonds repaid from a secondary property tax levy, and the bond monies are used for various capital improvements of the district. So this shows the various issues we have worked on over the years. In the bottom right-hand corner, it shows that you have about $24.9 million in bonds outstanding, and we have about 2.2 million coming off the books here in the next 90 days. You'll have about 22 million. So we like to just give the board an overview of the secondary property tax bonds of your district. On page 3 here, good news. You all know that your district is very successful and growing. Your tax base is growing. Your residential home building is doing very well. Your commercial activity is really starting to increase. Very nice to see over the years. I've had the privilege of representing your district for many, many years, and we had not seen the level of success in terms of the commercial development, and recently the level of residential homes as well. So sorry for the graph here, a little busy, but the red line, the red bar on the right-hand side, if you can see my cursor, is your 21-22 tax base. And that is the 330 million down here, 310,116,000 dollars, which shows that you grew at about 6% going into budget year 21-22 over last year. That's the aggregate estimated net tax base growth by which your property taxes are levied upon. Okay, so good news there. And we've seen a nice steady increase in the red bars and the blue bars. The blue bars is really your real growth, but that your tax base growth is limited because of the Prop 117. So all in all, just very good news there. Very pleased with that. We thought we'd share the pie chart down below along the lines of what I was sharing with you. You can see in the blue line down here, if you can see my cursor, that our commercial industrial tax base for your district approximates 40%. And that's good news when we levy property taxes, because it's levied upon not only residential, but also commercial, agricultural, and a little bit of railroad property. The orange bars here just kind of gives you a historical perspective of the growth in your residential property over the years, as we were just kind of talking about. And the blue bars down here, again, show you over a over a period of time, the growth in your commercial. So keep up the good work on that. It's always nice to have a diversified tax base. And we expect, because of your growth, that that will continue. Mr. President, members of the board, we know that the establishment and setting of tax rates is very important for your district. And we have highlighted here really from 13-14 to the present here, all of your tax rates. And as you know, school finance is complicated, but we've broken out here from left to right in the lime green color here, your primary tax rate, which is the green color there. The orange is our secondary tax rate, which is what we're going to focus on tonight relative to your general obligation bonds. And then, as you know, we have a district additional assistance tax, which is the blue secondary override, and the orange is the total. So you've done a very good job of maintaining a level tax rate. And again, our focus is our secondary tax rate, which you can see down here on the bottom. It's been pretty consistent here, the current year, which is about 0.89 cents per $100 of net limited assessed value. Okay, and down here we have your override history for you, which we know that you're familiar with. We're in pretty good shape. And don't need to go for an M&O override or a DA override for several fiscal years. When we work with you in the development of projected tax rates relative to issuing bonds, and I'm going to walk you through some schedules here in a moment, we all work very, very hard to make sure that if we calculate an estimated tax rate that goes in your voter information pamphlet, that goes out to the voters who have been very generous in supporting your district over the years. You've had incredible success. Like, I congratulate you for that, the board, the community, the administration, that when we make a tax rate projection, we work really hard to make sure that we meet that. And that is a district policy that we've all worked on together over the years. And this is a chart that really just shows the blue line here is from our 2017 general obligation bond election that was successful, and that we had projected a tax rate just under $1, as you can see here where my cursor is. And since the 2017 election and the subsequent issuance of bonds, the red line is the actual secondary tax rate that we levied the taxes on. So you can see in each year, we've always been below that very important voter pamphlet number. So we just wanted to give you that overview and that summary on tax rates. Okay, sorry for the, I guess this is about 19 columns, our apologies. I hope you can see this. Can you all see this fairly well? No, I'm here, thank you. Let me see what I can do here.
No, I can't see it at all.
You can't see it at all. Okay, bear with me. Is that better? Is that better there for the board? Okay.
Try one more, see if it 125 is a little bit better.
Okay. All right, thank you for your patience. All right, how's that? I can do 150. You want me to do that?
Sure.
Let's try that. All right. Okay, let me kind of go through this here with you. Just bear with me. A lot of columns here, but it's important to show you these columns as we plan for, as I mentioned earlier, the potential issuance of some new bonds for new capital improvements, and as we consider alternatives relative to a possible November 2021 bond, which I know staff and the board has been studying. So left to right here in the column 2 is our tax base. That's our valuation. That's the net limited assessed valuation that we establish our tax rates on, okay, under Arizona law. Column 3 is our current debt service. 3 and 4 is our current bonds outstanding. So this budget year, about all round, if you don't mind, about $2.9 million. and then 21, 22 about 3.3. Okay, and then you can see the additional debt service that is subject to the secondary property tax levy for repayment. Column 4 is the secondary tax rate we just talked about, the very important tax rate to levy the taxes. So 90 cents this year on the levy. All righty. Column 5 and 6 is a scenario where the district would proceed at a future board meeting coming up with the issuance of $14 million of general obligation bonds, which would exhaust your 2017 authorization. That would be the final sale. And I know that Dr. Freeman and Mr. French are familiar with the projects that would be completed with the $14 million. And as is, I'm sure the board is pretty much aware of that. But if you have any questions on those projects, they can help answer those questions. So we're structuring in 5 and 6 our principal and interest payments on the 14 million, okay? To get to column 7, which is our total debt service. And column 8 is our secondary tax rate projections after the issuance of the forthcoming $14 million and the impact on our 21-22 tax rate that you all are working on. You're working on your 21-22 budget now. We'll be working closely with the county in the establishment of your tax rates. Because of the growth in column 2 that we shared with you, your tax base is up roughly 6%, including the issuance of the $14 million. We're projecting that your 21-22 tax rate would be $1.03 per $100 of net limited assessed value, if you can see my cursor there, okay? And that is 4 cents below what we told the voters in column 9. That is the tax rate in the voter information pamphlet back in 2017. And as you can see, we're structuring our bond debt service to always make sure, as long as our assessed value continues to improve, to stay below what we told voters. So what I'm going to do is take a pause, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and that just kind of lays out your current debt, and that lays out the anticipated issuance of the 14 million. And then after I answer all your questions, then we'll go into the subsequent columns, which talks about a potential bond election in 2021. So I'll take a pause and answer questions of the board. Thank you.
Any members of the board have any questions they'd like to address to Mr. Ritter? Either we understand it or you did a good job of explaining it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. I see one of our board members has a similar last name than mine. I'm REA and he's RAE, so that's good.
Well, it's A before E except after C. Okay.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let's then shift over here to just a pro forma.
Excuse me, before you shift, let me just ask a question. This is Kathy, and I'm on Zoom. So, and maybe you said it, but to be quite honest, my eyes are so young, this document's pretty hard to see.
Okay.
So, if I take this and and dumb it down to a level where I think I got it, basically, if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is we underestimated by pennies, but nevertheless underestimated what we presented to the voters in terms of the tax, correct?
Correct.
And so holding that thought, this was an assessed value to the taxpayer at monies of, what was it, 90 some cents or $1.04 or whatever you said?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to hold that thought. So for me, that plays important because these bonds will be sold, but we've given taxpayers $1.04 basically on assessed value. And then I just need to hold that number because I'm going to ask you some questions when you present current.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was following you there in terms of the tax rates. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. And if we don't have another bond election, or you choose not to call a bond election, then the information that I just shared with you reflects secondary tax rate implications of your 2017 bond election and subsequent bond sales, and all so far so good in terms of the tax rate, which we all work very hard to stay at or below what we tell voters. Very important in terms of confidence. Okay, so this is a scenario working with staff where the board would consider a November 2021 election. That's why we call this Project of 21. And if successful, and this would be in the amount of 15 million, if you can see in column 10, column 12, and column 14, we would anticipate selling the bonds over a period of years as you need the money, and structure the debt service and all the math accordingly. The thought here is, if it's successful, that we would sell about $5 million in bonds in July of 22. So call it roughly a year from now. A little more than a year from now, we would issue $5 million, and those monies would be used for projects that staff can bring you up to speed on. I know you're probably already aware of that. We would then come out in probably 23 and issue 7 million, roughly a year later. And these sale dates move a little bit, as you know, depending upon what's going on. And we can move them out or we can do them sooner, but let's go with, for planning purposes, another bond sale for 7 million in July 1 of 23, and another $3 million in July 1 of 2025. Okay. So we structure all of that debt service, principal and interest payments, with really kind of a goal in mind. And the goal is to always try to be very sensitive to our secondary tax rate. So column 16 aggregates those three bond sales. You see where it says estimated debt service? This is only on the new bonds. Okay, this is only on our new 15 million here. And then we calculate a tax rate on our $15 million bond election. You see this right here? So we start out at 14 cents. Okay, then we layer this on, or 16 cents, if you're following me. And you go all the way down to the bottom. And when we average all those tax rates, we're 29 cents additional tax rate for the 15 million. You see how we did that? And this is exactly what we put in the voter pamphlet. It's under state law, and this is exactly how we disclose it to our voters in our district. And so we start off with a tax rate again at 14 cents, and it looks like by the time we kick in the rest of the principal payments, we're probably around 53 cents. And then we average it and we get 29 cents per $100. Okay, so hold your thought on the 29 cents for just a moment. I'm going to come back to that. So let's talk about the tax rate again. We're at 90 cents right here, right now, budget year 2021, right? We're getting ready to set our budgets for 21-22 and our tax rates for 21-22. And as I mentioned to you, working very closely with Ryan and Dr. Freeman and staff right now, we're probably going to set it at somewhere around $1.03. I shared that with you earlier. Okay. The bond election is successful. We sell some bonds. We sell that initial 5 million I shared with you, and we structure the tax rate. And you can see it's starting to go up a little bit because we're issuing some new bonds for our capital improvement needs of our district. So at the time we do the election, a lot of people will look at this. What is the tax rate when I vote for the election on my secondary tax rate for my bonds? It's $1.03. If I approve this bond issue, it's going to go to $1.11. Okay, 8 cents, fair. Not a significant increase. Any increase is taken seriously, but I like 8 cents there. So we level it out about to $1.11. And then we're going to assume at some point in time, you're going to continue to get your growth in your assessed value. And you can see how your tax rate will go down as your tax base grows. Okay. So I wanted to share with you two things here. I wanted to share with you the 29 cents. And we also wanted to share with you the impact of a $15 million bond election on the total tax rate vis-a-vis where it is now. Okay, again, $1.03 for 21-22 when they vote for the election, 90 cents now, both of which are under our voter pamphlet from the 17th. Okay.
Mark, this
Yes.
is Dr. Freeman. Could you do
Yes.
one more comparison for them? Because the page is so long. If you go back to column 9,
Yes.
and the first 3 numbers, I want to people be familiar with. So this was the voter pamphlet in 2017, 99 cents, $1.07, and $1.09 is that first 3 years. And we're coming in at 90 right now. So we're 9 cents under the voter pamphlet. Now go back to column 19. Remember that was 99, 107, 109. So this is 90, the 9 cents we're at. 103 is under the 107, and 111 is just 2 cents more than that 2017 voter pamphlet. So what we're able to make up in actually selling below the estimated rate, and what I mean by that is if we sold bonds and paid 4% when we did the pamphlet, but when we actually went to the street and only paid 2%, our bonds aren't going to cost as much as the pamphlet. If we estimated that we had, I can't, let me see, if we estimated we had 291 million in property value, but it actually came, or 280 million, it actually came in at 290 million. We spread the tax base out, so that helps us with our rate. What's always been important for the board is that when you guys put these projections together, you're putting a projection together. Like if you look at the top column, you see that interest rate is 4.5%. That is probably a conservative worst case scenario for us going to the bond market unless something happens with the economy. So that's part of the reason we've been able on that bar graph that Ms. Rios referred to is stay under the pamphlet, because the pamphlet number we're giving everybody is kind of what happens when the plan doesn't come together. When the plan does come together, we're able to do better than that. And we rely on Stifel to guide us on that. Mr. French and I wouldn't be able to put this kind of data together. But this is part of the thinking and the strategy that goes into these numbers that we're showing the board tonight. So that strategy continues even as we move forward and try to invest in more projects. And Mark, correct me if I said any of that wrong or you need to straighten any of that out.
No, I appreciate that, Dr. Freeman. And I know this math gets a little bit crazy with all the spreadsheets, but yeah, that is correct. I think the good news here is if you just look at the 17, you've done a really good job. We projected the $1.07, as you can see here. I'm going to put my cursor on there, right? And we're going to come in at $1.03 again for 21-22. And I think your point on that, Dr. Freeman, was the good news is that we could sell another $15 million in bonds and still be, similar to what the 2017 voter pamphlet had in terms of this rate over here. So I think that's the good news, and that's largely because our tax base is doing so well. Hope that was helpful. Okay.
So this is Kathy. Before you go, and I just have some general questions, again, just to make sure I understand. When you average the 29 cents, you take that over the lifetime of the bond. So you're taking that divided by so many years, right? I mean, that's how I see the math done.
Correct.
And how many years did you take that over?
That is correct. This number here, right?
Right.
Okay, that is over all of these years here. So and this is how we calculate it pursuant to the statute. That goes out, I think we're going out about what, 20, 21 years there. Let me go over here to the right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. And is that normal to go out that far, 20 years?
Well, we don't have to go out that far. We went out that far just to keep our tax rates, reasonable, and also trying to, make sure we don't put you in a box for the future. With your growth, if you have an election in 2021 and you continue to grow at a rapid pace, maybe in 2025, you have to go for another election, right?
Right.
To keep up with the growth. So we're always very sensitive to your secondary tax rate. And so we went ahead and amortized these over a longer period of time. That also allows for future generations to help pay for the public infrastructure that lasts many, many years. So that's why we, in working with staff, went ahead and did the amortization the way in which we have it here.
But is there not downsides to amortizing it over 20 years?
Probably the only downside is obviously just like a mortgage, we have to pay a little more interest. And so that's the only downside of the longer amortization.
And have you calculated the interest rate for the longer period versus the lower tax bracket to make sure that it's really, I mean, I get the paying more taxes, but I don't know in the 20 years what that looks like mathematically.
Yeah, we haven't run the differential between the two. We started with this as kind of a way to, like I said, minimize that tax rate going forward, but we can certainly discuss that further.
I'd just be curious what it looks like more than anything once you because it may show a huge, it may look very different than I think it would. So if you could do that, that would be great. Then I have one more question. When you project your growth rate, you're projecting growth rate over the next how many years?
Okay, so let's go back. Hope everybody's able to see this. I blew it up a little bit more. And the growth rate is in this column 2 here, you see? And here's the 291, and we're going into 321 next year. We got some SRP and lieu value there, okay? And then the next year, so this is a good number. We just got that from the county. That number generally does not change. It'll be fixed the third Monday in August. So good number. Then 22, 23, 23, 24, to answer your question, I'm going to go down here below. And this is, there's a footnote down here, and this is subject really a lot of times to statute as well, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When we do our voter pamphlets, they've really kind of, they've oftentimes tried to make passing bonds sometimes more difficult for us. So they throttled back and they limited the amount of growth a school district can put into its projections, right? So you can see here in this footnote, fiscal 21-22 is estimated by the county and assumes the 6% growth, right?
I see it. Mm-hmm.
The real number. And fiscal years 22-23 through 26-27 assume 2.27%. Very conservative, fair?
Yeah, I was going to say that answers my question, actually.
Yeah, and that's out of the statute. And then check this out. After the 227, we can only grow it at 0.45, less than 0.5%.
Okay, that answers my question. It keeps you from over projection, and really that would really skew numbers. So I get it. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
It's probably a pretty severe correction, Ms. Reyes, but you can see the intent is to keep people from overinflating their projections to make their finance look way cheaper than it's going to be. What actually has happened because of the statute, it ends up being way underestimated, which makes the pamphlet more expensive than the actual bond debt service that we're going to do.
Right.
I don't know what the sweet spot is, but that's the way we've kind of overcorrected to the conservative side. The good news for us is as we go to continue to do capital projects, we're continuing to come in below the level that we promised voters when we put the pamphlet together. So, and I think 20 years, it's like for the rest of the audience, anybody who listens to Dave Ramsey, you don't want to do your mortgage more than 15 years. But one of the things that you see is we have multiple debt finance things going on. So while that table looks pretty long, there's a series of 3 sales in this. And they're not all the same length, but as you accumulate bond issues over time, that stair step continues to work down.
Right. No, I was just curious. I mean, anytime you amortize something over that long, there's a trade-off, and I was just curious what it is. I mean, I get what you're saying. I was just more curious in terms of the dollar to dollar.
Well, I think there's an issue with the rate that we put on there too. Mark, would you talk a little bit about our interest rate history that the district has had over the last couple issues? Because I think we beat the pamphlet in that also.
Yeah, I sure can. And thank you for your patience, everybody, for, again, wish I was there in person so that we weren't having to deal with some of the technology here. On the first page, I'll just share it with you. On the first page, we've been very fortunate over the years to sell bonds for your district. And if you remember, in May of 2020, we actually sold almost 3 million, and we got 1%, if you remember. So that was a wonderful thing. And the previous one in 19 was at 2.75. Going back to 18, we were at 2.9, back to 17 at 2.17%. So, you know, on the district's balance sheet, we've been very blessed to be able to sell our debt on our balance sheet, you know, kind of in the 2% range. So we've been fortunate.
And Mark, I don't know if you had this in the presentation, but my recollection is we just had our rating upgraded in the last year too, didn't we? We did get an upgrade, and we are going to, on this $14 million sale here, we're going to be meeting with the rating agencies again and tell them the Littleton story and either affirm that, Dr. Freeman, and we always work hard to get another upgrade, and you got some good things going here, so we'll have to wait and see where it goes. In this scenario, I estimated 3.75% when we move forward with our $14 million bond sale, okay? And this goes out about 18 years-ish. And my guess is if we were in the market today, we would be in the high 2% interest rate range for your district. So we're looking forward to this sale. We assume 375. My guess is we're going to be in the twos, high 2% range, give or take. Low threes, high twos. Okay, all good so far?
Yes.
Okay, bear with me. We're moving pretty quick. Okay, so now let's go. Let's take that 29 cents. Okay. And again, this is exactly what we put in the voter pamphlet. So scenario that we're talking about now is a November bond election for $15 million. And then we have one for 12 million. Staff had asked us to share with the board the tax rate and estimated cost to taxpayers for a $15 million election and a 12 million. So to take all of that math and to plug it into what it's going to cost the average homeowner within your district is this table here, if you can see it. So based on the information we're getting from the county, the average value, this is not market value over here for tax purposes, that the county has established the average value of a residential home within the boundaries of your school district. And there are homes that are obviously worth much more than that, and there are homes that are worth less than that. But when the county averages it, they gave us $120,918 value. Okay, residential property is assessed at 10%. So the assessed value would be 12,000. We divide that by 100. Tax rates are per 100, as you all know, would suggest that the average taxpayer would pay $35 more in additional taxes per year for $15 million. And when we break that down on a monthly basis, it would be $2.92 increase in the taxes based on that 29 cents that I shared with you on the previous page. Okay, that's residential property. So that's not bad. When we work on bond elections, I love seeing that number around $3 or less than $5. Sometimes they're much more than that, as you know. Okay, so that's residential. And then commercial properties assessed at 18%. Residential is assessed at 10%. And the values of our commercial property are larger because you have some, large commercial entities in your tax base, then that would be about $167 a month. And then the statute requires us to also break it out based on agricultural and vacant property, which is assessed at 15%. So the average value of an agricultural or vacant lot property within your district is only $23,000, and that would be about, less than $1 a month. Okay. Sorry for all the calculations. Arizona, as you know, is known as one of the most complicated, has one of the most complicated tax systems in the country. And so we're able to kind of summarize it in our voter information pamphlet as I just described. So that's 15 million. And so what I think I'm going to do is we've got our $12 million. See here, I'm going to get down here. Let me fix this here real quick. I'm just going to go to the bottom line. I'll blow this up here. This is easier for me. There we go. I'm going to blow this up here in a moment, but I'm not going to go through all the math. This is very similar. The only thing that's different really is column 10 through 13. And we downsized the election from 15 million down to 12 million. And we have a sale in July of 22 and a sale in July of 23. So let me blow this up here a little bit so that you can see it. And I hope you can see this. This is what we changed. This is our 12 million, 22 and 23 bond sale. And we structured all the math in, limiting our tax rates as mentioned. And to get down to the projected tax rate, it's going to go down because we're only doing 12 million, not 15 million, right? So back to what we have to put in the voter pamphlet, that would drop the tax rate about 5 cents per 100. You see the 25 versus the 29 we had before. So when we plug the 25 cents into the same tables I just went with you, obviously our monthly taxes are going to go down because we're issuing $3 million less in debt. So I'm going to go to this table, which you're familiar with, and let's go over to the residential. And you can see here that our monthly goes down to $2.54, down from $2.92 on the previous table. This was $35 roughly. This is $30.47 on an annual basis. So not much difference. Call it about 50 cents per month for an additional $3 million of bond money for your capital improvements. So we've got the commercial on here. We have our agricultural on here as well. So Mr. President, members of the board, I mean, that pretty much concludes a lot of the presentation materials. I hope you found that helpful. And I'm glad to entertain any questions of the core staff is here as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate your information and the way that it was presented. Any of the rest of the members of the board have any questions of Mark at this particular time?
No.
Nope, it looks like you've done well, Mark.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I know that staff has some additional information for you, and we'll look forward to hearing back from staff on the decision to proceed with the 14 million new money in a forthcoming board meeting in connection therewith. And if the board does decide to move forward with a November election, we'll be working closely with you on the ballot question and all of the technical details. So we'll look forward to that. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Do we need to take any action on that, or it's just informational purposes?
Move on what it would look like from the last meeting.
It's Sue is the first one there. Okay. Mr. President, am I still? Okay. Mr. President, as mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we had created a menu of items for both the $15 million and the $12 million bond option. We've organized it in a way that would be consistent with the potential voter information pamphlet. Student technology and classroom equipment are broken out separately because of the life of those items require them to be paid back within the first 5 years of the bond issuance. Student facility improvements would be able to be grouped together in a voter information pamphlet, and support staff facilities improvements would have to be broken out since they are deemed for administrative purposes. Looking at the menu of items, you'll notice the difference between option 1, the 15 million, and option 2, the 12 million, is $300,000 for the student technology and classroom equipment. That's equivalent to 1 year of investment into student devices. If we look at student facility improvements, it includes 4 of the survey questions we shared with the board in March. With all 4 options, we have identified projects consistent with the survey we provided and how many can be completed within each option. You'll notice under school air sterilization and ventilation, option 1 allows for upgrades to Alamar once completed and other mitigation strategies, while option 2 only allows for ionization at our current school sites. If we look at solar energy, option 1 would allow for solar projects at all sites, while option 2 would allow for solar at 6 of the 8 sites or 75% of all sites. For maintenance and modernization of school sites, option 2 would allow for fire and security and potable water upgrades, but would not provide enough funding for facade upgrades to the schools. Under completion of school, you'll notice that option 1 would allow for construction and amenities consistent with our other campuses, while option 2 would be a scaled back version. If we scroll down, Sue. The difference in this section labeled support staff's facility improvements is that both would allow needed funds to update the maintenance yard, but option 1 would allow for a solar project at the district office. At this point in the presentation, I would like to ask the board if they have any questions and to provide direction to the staff on the form of any resolution on referring a question to the voters in a future meeting.
This is Kathy. I have a question if I can.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So going back to the school air sterilization and ventilation, Alamar, why is that particular school named? Is it because, I mean, is it special equipment? What is it?
Mr. President, Member Reyes, that is named out specifically because it's we have not built it yet, and we have not reserved money for adding ionization or other mitigation strategies to the HVAC units due to the COVID-19.
Okay, so it's nothing more than the other schools have. It's merely putting money in there because we would need it to help build and make it up like the other schools, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then when you go and you determine maintenance and modernization of school sites 5, how do you determine which 5? Is it based on the older schools first? Obviously need, of course, but how is that looked at?
Member Reyes, the 5 is actually based on the survey that we provided to the board in March. That was the rank order of the items. The maintenance and modernization of school sites was actually completed by a survey that we've had done by our director of operations. He goes out with his team and looks at items that are going to need to be completed, items that may or may not be done, be completed by the school facilities board. These are items that are essential functions of the school, such as fire alarms and security, potable water, which would be like the pipes in the walls, the irrigation systems on the school sites. Did
Okay,
that
thank
answer
you.
your question?
Yes, thanks.
Are there any other questions? I have just one, and that is Alomar, the 14 million that we would be selling next month, whatever is for the beginning or the starting of initiation of Alomar. Somewhere along the line, there's some others that needed to be done. Is that item number 6, the third building or the additional building or whatever you want to call that?
Mr. President, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I do have maybe one comment or just statement. I know you need, but if I'm a voter and I'm living in the Avondale area and you know, we're mentioning Alomar and you don't see it built yet, I think as a taxpayer, I'd have a hard pressed time voting for something that's not there, or that in my mind, right, wrong, or indifferent, is going to be brand new. So I think as you develop this brochure, of course you want to be as transparent as possible, but again, if I'm living here and I'm passing that and I see new school, in my mind, because I don't know, I'm thinking it's modern anyway. So maybe it's just something to consider or think about. It's more of a comment.
Mr. President.
Please go ahead, Dr. Freeman.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Reyes. So the level of detail in the presentation of the board is greater than the pamphlet. The pamphlet has actually a legal description that bond counsel and the consultants will work with us on. Part of the story behind that is in 2017, first of all, construction costs were lower and inflation has added to the cost of that building, but nobody was adding ionization to their HVAC units in 2017. I mean, this is all new since COVID. So we are essentially adding that to the construction project. The estimate we have on ionization now is based on the number of HVAC packages currently existing on the roofs of all buildings. So if we add new units to new buildings, I think too, this is all part of, I certainly understand your concern, and it goes right along with the 20-year mortgage concern, is who are we making this investment for? And often it's for our kids' kids, just like roads and bridges and other things that are construction projects. So we would, members of the board, Ms. Reyes, bring that language back before the board to consider if and when you were to consider a resolution to do it. So it's not being decided tonight, and it's not in print tonight. It's a future item, and you'd have more opportunity to discuss what that looks like, if that makes sense to you.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's worth anything, but I spoke to my brother-in-law this week who lives in a place called California. And he was telling me that his tax base over there for the house that he's got there is $14,000 a year. And we know what our tax base is here. So maybe we can hope and pray that the Californians will come in and take over Alomar, and it'll be a gonga of a deal for them to get in here and drop their tax base from whatever they're paying to whatever we got now.
I think that's probably true.
If they have to do $5.54,
All right.
Mr. President, may I make a comment?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I guess I would just follow up a little bit on Ms. Reyes's comments, and I'd love to explore, for example, the solar energy proposal a little bit further, just as far as the logistics of it, you know, where the panels are going, estimated savings, etc. Obviously, that's a substantial investment the district would be making. I just don't feel like I have a lot of understanding regarding what that project would look like. So I understand this is based on what Dr. Freeman just said, this is kind of an initial glance at what those priorities would look like. But before I kind of committed to our voters that these were the projects that we would be pursuing or a future board would be pursuing, I would like to have a little bit greater understanding of what that project would entail. And then just, I don't know if you were looking for this. Generally, I'm supportive of the $15 million issuance. I think it's important for any organization, especially one that's growing, or a district that is growing as quickly as ours, to have GO bond authorization, not only to complete our obligation in building, one of our outstanding schools in the Alomar community, but just in general to have capacity. I think is just good policy. So ultimately, I think that's the direction I'm leaning, but certainly open to other discussion from board members.
So the recommendation would be tonight would be to give staff the direction to go and attack either the 15 million, preferably. I mean, that would be my preference as well. And come back at a future board meeting and say, okay, this is a little bit more detail, as John was talking about, as Kathy was talking about, for solar panels, for maintenance, whatever it might be, to give us a little bit more. They've been ranked and looked at by the public and the community. And I think that's what we're really trying to finish up with tonight, is giving them some direction as to what they need to do. I think they've done an excellent job of taking something you didn't have whatsoever, putting it out into the community, gathering the information, ranking them, and now already got the ideas for the bonds and the other things available for us, which was great for this evening. And then I don't know, I'd like to make that recommendation that the governing board would direct the staff to form a resolution to be brought forth back at a future one, looking at that $15 million. Have a second?
Mr. President, that's, I
Please.
mean, there's not a vote on this tonight.
Oh,
and
okay.
That is it, but that is exactly what we're looking for. And I don't know if people caught it early in Mr. Rader's presentation, not Rader. The capacity for the district is 24 million. And we're only proposing authority for 15. And that's a pretty tight number. So we ask a solar expert to come in and say, what kind of projects could you do and what would the estimate of cost be? That's going to come back, when that time to make those investments happen. The estimates that were made, in the fall of 2020 probably aren't going to be exactly what it looks like when you actually go to buy it. So that all returns again, because there's changes in materials costs, competition, other market forces, incentives, and things like that. So these are, we get consultants on the ground, on our roofs, checking our pipes, and giving us those numbers in estimates so we can have an idea how much we should put in a bond question. We're not actually buying it when we put the bond question together. That's the activity that comes next if you have the money. So for each one of these, there's more to come. For instance, we asked the architect to take the Alomar project and draw a $14 and $4 million line down the middle. So when that presentation comes to the board, they know what's in what phase and what may or may not happen. But that's another activity to come before the board following whether or not we're going to go forward with this. So that we're not going to pin everything down to a detailed level for the bond election, but the board will have a chance, and the community, to have the transparency for the things we're doing moving forward if we have the authority. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, Dr. Freeman, thank you so much for that explanation. I think we're all on the same page as far as that goes. At the same point, if a resident comes up to us and asks, why we're doing a $15 million bond, and we've identified solar, energy as a potential priority for that, I think I'd like to have at least a little bit more background on why we've identified that as a priority, potential savings, and what that's ultimately going to look like on our campuses, so that we can be advocates for the bond as well, if this is the language that we've chosen to include it and chosen to include in our pamphlet. So just one unrelated statement that I wanted to make before. I think it's important to point out that the state of Arizona doesn't fund the school districts with any of our capital needs, so that we are reliant on our residents and families to kind of make up that difference. So these types of elections might not necessarily be required if the states would fulfill their capital obligations to districts.
Thank you very much. Nothing else on that one? You got some direction? Thank you, Mr. French, appreciate it. Mr. Reader, if you're still there, thank you. Ms. Kelly, number 11.
Mr. President, members of the board, we're asking for an addition to the stipend and addendum schedule this evening. This item comes before the board for consideration as we continue our efforts to remain competitive in an ever-shrinking education labor pool. The administration has not yet brought a fiscal year 22 compensation item forward, as we are continuing to monitor and wait for the state's budget to be passed. We do, however, have information on federal dollars through ESSER grants and would like to recommend we add a retention stipend of $1,000 for all returning employees. To be eligible, an employee would have to have been hired in fiscal year 21 or prior. If the employee worked a partial amount of the work calendar associated with their position, then the amount would be prorated for the number of days worked. After surveying several surrounding districts, including Avondale, Tolleson Union, and Tolleson Elementary, which are major competitors of ours, they are paying retention stipends between $1,000 and $2,000. Districts are also using available funds for one-time salary or wage increases in addition to a retention stipend. The administration is working on a proposal to bring to a future meeting to examine a possible base pay raise out of M&O funds and supplementing an additional amount through ESSER funds. Because we operate under conservative assumptions, this type of one-time compensation gives the board the discretion to remain conservative in their decisions while gathering information in the coming year. The board can then decide if it's feasible to move the one-time compensation to a permanent status. So this evening, we're requesting the board approve a one-time $1,000 retention stipend for returning employees. And I would be happy to answer any questions that a member has. Thank you.
Any of the board members have any questions for Ms. Kelly at this time? If there's not, we are looking for an action on this one.
Amy, and I move that the governing board approve a retention stipend for fiscal year 2021-22.
This is Sarah Contreras, and I'll second that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Soshenek,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes.
Aye.
Thank you all. Dr. Freeman, turn some time over to you for dynamic digital instructional models and COVID metrics.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Am I muted? Okay. As this item comes up, I would just ask that we work our way down in the details a little bit here to remind everybody of the schedule that we're on. If you stop there, you can see the new categories, red, orange, yellow, blue. And in the district mitigation plan, which we covered with the board last month, we added a green column. The green column was our idea of the return to normal, or as the green parents would say, to go to school without masks. If you scroll down a little more, this is actually the graphic provided by the health department. And so when you get into orange, you're having more substantial transmission and you need to increase your mitigation strategies. As the board's aware from their weekly updates, our percent positivity and illnesses climbed slightly in the last month. So I want to show that to the board and the community. If we scroll down to our graph, we do a comparison of Maricopa County to the Littleton School District. And on there, you can see on the tail end on the right, where the metrics for both the county and the school district were dropping, a little uptick in the district's numbers. And so what we were seeing is the county and the state continuing to drop off. And then for the last 3 or 4 weeks, Littleton ticking up to 6.1 up to 9.3. And then last Thursday, dropping back down again. So what the management team has discussed is that we are bouncing around kind of in this yellow-orange range, and we're already in a hybrid mode with Wednesdays being used for testing for kids who are staying home. The next level of hybrid model would be to start splitting the week to Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday kids again. From the review we've done of CDC guidelines, we think the most risk for kids in our K-8 school or in our middle grades are 6-8 kids. They're handled a little differently in CDC guidelines. So actions we have already taken are to restrict the amount of time those kids have moving around. The first thing we did was expand their seating in the cafeteria. And the next thing that we're doing is actually going to not have them in any congregating settings. And so they would actually have breakfast and lunch in the classroom, with the idea that if we did have any spread in our middle grades, we could isolate it and then just quarantine a classroom or two. And so what we've done is we've ratcheted up some of the mitigation strategies in grades 6-8 in an effort to try to keep kids in school 4 days. And so that's where we're at right now. Of course, this Thursday will tell us a lot. We have not bounced over 10% yet. And I think that was always a critical measure that people were looking at. There is a little bit of difference in our community between our Avondale zip code and our Tolleson zip code. The Tolleson zip code has been much higher. And we don't know the exact reason behind that, if it is some workforce differences, if it has been some vaccination hesitancy, or what those things might be. But all of you, if you're getting our constant contact or our phone messaging system, we have been pushing caution, mitigation, and safe practices for families in all of our communication with our homes, and asking people to stay home if they're sick, to wash their hands, to please continue to wear masks so we can keep school open. We don't have a recommendation for any change for this meeting for the board, but we would like to get some feedback if the board thinks we're on the right course. What we would love to be able to do, if we can get these numbers down a little bit, is actually finish the year with kids in school 5 days. So May looks like what August might look like when they go on summer break. We are planning with our ESSER funds numerous remediation programs, summer school and extended day. We're trying to recruit teachers and families to participate in those, to address whatever learning opportunities may have been missed during distance remote learning. And that really is where we'd like to spend the lion's shares of our ESSER monies in remediation for kids, not things, but teachers and students, and opening facilities for longer hours for kids to have more practice. So we really are pushing cooperation, collaboration with our community, with our parents, and everybody in it to accomplish those goals, and working toward that end at this time. If you think we're on track, or if we're misguided, this is an opportunity without taking action. If the board did want to take action to open up or restrict access to schools or any other kind of mitigation measures more than what I've described, you could take action. Otherwise, I don't know that it's needed.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. We appreciate the update. Any member of the board have any comments?
This is Mr. Rader, Mr. President. I would just note that I'm supportive of the district's effort to continue to return to some sort of normalcy for our families, and understanding that that includes cooperation from everybody to adhere to mitigation measures. So again, just supportive of all efforts that the district is making to keep our students in school, and if possible, as you were just mentioning, expanding to 5 days before the end of the school year, I think would be great.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Amy, Sarah, Kathy?
This is Kathy. I just wanted to echo what John said. I'm all for, based on the numbers and cooperation of trying to open school back up 5 days a week to get some kind of whatever normal means anymore. I think that's absolutely critical. And I do absolutely support a summer program for those students that I know definitely may have gotten behind. So I'm all for supporting teachers and summer programs to make, get kids back up on track and feel good about where they're at before they enter possibly into a new grade.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that as well. All the work that the staff has done, the teachers have done, for the community as they've tried to do this as well. And I'm supportive of what you've got outlined there, Dr. Freeman. If there's no other comments on that, would you like to try to address the legislature?
Let's see, my mic is still open. Okay. So I don't have anything to report from the legislature on sports betting, but if you're watching the news, that's moving. I do have a few things related to education. We're hoping that the Senate Resolution 1020 to go back to the voters to reverse, suspend, or end the English only backlash that happened years ago. None of the experts in language acquisition supported that. But since it was voted by the voters before, to take that back to the voters and have them reconsider that in the ballot in November, we're hoping that that does get referred. There are several other bills that I think are important that are moving. One, House Bill 2638 appropriates $10 million for community college promise scholarships from the general fund, and we think that'd be a benefit to our community. Also, Senate Bill 1179 restores the 4th year of CTED, which in our area, Career Technical Education District, is West MEC. During the recession, one of the things the legislature did is take that 4-year high school program and cut its funding to 3 years. And they've been, well, actually they cut it more than that. They've been working that back. So there's a bill to restore that this year, and there is money in the general fund. The general fund, as many people have heard, has done a lot better than anticipated. Some of those funds are considered one-time and some ongoing. This would be an ongoing expense, but the success of those programs, and now our kids, when they matriculate onto Towson Union, become part of the West MEC Technical District and can take advantage of those. So that would be great for our community. House Bill 2001 is a credit for land donations. This, I guess, according to some of my sources in the Senate, is now being called the Littleton bill. And we have been working with the legislature to reinstate the tax credit for corporate donations of land. It's a 30% credit. But what happened is during the recession and the years that followed, none of the developers were making land donations. And since nobody applied the credit fell out of statute. We had to go back and get members of both parties to agree. And actually, we've had great success. We came out of the House at 59, 0, one abstaining. And I think it's got a good shot in the Senate. It's a key component of our land donation from Brookfield. At the time that property was appraised at $3 million. It's appraised higher now because, of course, that area is being improved. If the district had to go out and spend, or if the school facility board had to go out and spend $3.5 million versus just giving $1 million tax credit to Brookfield, it would be way more expensive for the district or the state to procure that land. So it just makes a lot of sense. But the original statute also has language for charters and some other things. And as I talk about some other bills tonight, I'll talk a little bit about how some of this gets a little messy. But it should allow us to continue with the donation and acquisition schedule that we have agreed to with Brookfield to take possession of that property. Then House Bill 2017 is an appropriation for STEM learning and workforce development. It's a small appropriation at just $3 million, but we support any kind of those additional projects that would help put resources into kids. And of course, we have 3 STEM academies here, so we have an interest in that. There is a bill, House Bill 2268, which is on total compensation statements. And I'm not sure what the genesis of that is right now. When Littleton employees go into Visions and can check their pay stub statement, it has all of their pay sources, all of their pay deductions. It has the effort that the district puts towards their benefits on there. So I think because of the financial management software we have, this wouldn't make any change to the district, but in some districts, it may be additional information for employees about the total cost of their compensation and what their benefits are. There's a Group B weight bill, House Bill 2817. It's for additional weight for gifted pupils, and that was also one of the things that was cut in the last decade. It's a fairly small amount that doesn't really help with very much additional facilitation of kids who test very high on intelligence measures. And so there is an advocacy group that would like to see more support go to that and provide more support to those students. That looks like that's moving. There is another bill, 2862, which would allow governing boards to adopt instructional models that provide students with the required time, but through modified courses and remote learning. Now, we had been advocating in the legislature to have some mechanism for schools. So, for instance, since we've returned to in-person, we've had to quarantine classrooms because a classroom was exposed by somebody who had, let's say, been exposed to COVID in their family. And so because they were in close contact, we send them home for a prescribed period of days following the guidelines from the health department. But because we've been doing remote learning, they're able to continue to learn. If in the past, a child or a family got the flu and missed 5 days of school, they were just counted absent for 5 days. And you might get a pile of work when you got back that was makeup work that might get done and might get graded. So the ability for us to continue with synchronous and asynchronous activities when kids aren't able to be in school to learn, and to continue to count their attendance, to have them continue to do learning activities so they're not falling behind, would be really important to us. If we wanted to do that under current law, we'd have to withdraw them from Collier and enroll them in the online school for 10 days, and then withdraw them from the online school and enroll them back in Collier after 10 days. So there's components of this bill that are really important. There's also a ton of other stuff that has been piggybacked into this bill that provides all kinds of flexibility for non-traditional school options, other providers. probably creating some flexibility for other, living room, apprenda kind of options. So it is a piece of legislation that probably has more in it than we like, and probably will continue to need more work. But quite often, this is what we see is compromises made, and a lot of things get thrown in there to get the part that you want moving forward. And so I think that moved forward in the Senate today. And like a lot of things that happen down there, you get as far as you can get in one legislative session, and then you go back to work when they reconvene. Some of the bills that are problems for us, House Bill 2364 was passed and signed by the governor. It modifies requirements associated with submitting pro and con statements in voter pamphlets. Now, you may remember there was some controversy a couple of years ago because people would put in a pro statement that really was against the election, and people who didn't even live in a voting area, a voting district, were sending comments out to other people's areas with misleading and confusing statements. So there is some legitimate purpose in constraining that a little bit, but it could also make it more difficult for people to make submittals to the voter pamphlet that should be heard, so that voices are heard. And so we'll see how that comes out. It kind of has risen up as one of those voter restriction a group of bills, and I'll talk about, there's a group of those that I'll talk about in a little bit. Senate Bill 1783 is a bill that establishes an alternative income tax structure for small businesses, and that is targeted at reducing what they're calling the Prop 208 tax surcharge. And if you read the paper, you may have seen some noted hijinks in the running of committees and testimony in the legislature related to this. So there's been a lot of efforts to address the consequences of Prop 208. We'll see where that goes. That, of course, would impact future revenue to the school district based on that proposition and that tax. We haven't seen any of that revenue yet, and we're not really banking on spending any of it until we see what happens with all of these other issues. The empowerment scholarship accounts, these are school vouchers, and there's been a big effort to expand those again. Senate Bill 1452 has, I talked about, is also an alternative minimum tax for business. 1783 in the House would reduce funds available to go towards public schools. So that is expanding vouchers, generally means that that money is going out of the general fund in a direction away from your public schools. And then they say that they don't have sustained revenue for public schools. So there is this constant kind of tug of war between your community public schools that are governed by governing boards and all of these other models that do create choice and flexibility for other people, but also have very low accountability. Finally, there were 3 bills that were pointed out by the Greater Phoenix leadership and sent in a letter. They are Senate Bill 1485, 1593, and 1713, requiring separate affidavits, voter ID numbers for early voting, reducing the amount of time for early voting, dropping you off the early voting list if you don't vote often enough. All of these things, like any one of them might not seem like that big a deal when your state puts out a package, a whole suite of them, and other states are doing it too. Certainly it gets the attention of other people, and the letter from GPL said, disturbingly, these have one thing in common, making it more difficult for Arizonans to vote. If you're watching a television, you've probably already seen ads addressing this. And so because as we discussed tonight, we have elections for board members. We have elections for our maintenance and operating override budget, for our capital override budget, and for our bond budget. So our relationship with our voters and our ability for our voters to get to the polls and to cast their ballot is an important part of the operation and governance of the school district. And that's what I prepared for this evening. It's moving quicker. You know, it doesn't look like they're going to make their 100-day goal. They increased their per diem, which is helpful, especially for legislators who have to come from far regions of the state to participate in the legislative process. And we're seeing in the paper now some jockeying from legislators and senators about what part of the budget they wouldn't vote for. That may be a bad sign and that it's hard to pass the budget, but it may be a good sign. And if they're talking about the budget may come up for serious negotiation soon. And the sooner that gets done, the sooner we can get out of session and we'll have an idea what we're dealing with in the upcoming school year as those laws go into force 90 days after they're approved. And if there's anything anybody would like me to look into in particular, add to the update or report to the board. And, you know, I'd be happy to do research on behalf of the board, get that information to you as well. Those are just some of the things I thought might be important to you and to the community tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Freeman. We appreciate all the work you do in keeping us informed and moving forward. I have no other items on the agenda tonight other than adjournment. If anybody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
This is Kathy. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:46.
Second.
Who's that, Amy?
Yes.
Amy.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashanek,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes.
Aye.
A reminder that we are meeting in 2 weeks.
27th, is that the date?
It's right there on the agenda, regular time, 27th, to discuss the plan for ESSER funds and review board goals moving forward. You wanted to tackle that with them, and you and I can talk about Thursday what that activity might look like.
Very good. All right. Thank you all for being here and all of you who are out there in the other ether land. Thank you. Bye.
Night, everybody.
Good night.